Welcome to this overview of CLSI EP43, implementing a laboratory test under emergency use conditions. CLSI EP43 is a white paper that is intended to help laboratories and manufacturers anticipate and prepare for using EUA tests under the challenging conditions of a public health emergency. It provides general advice on points to consider and resources that may be available to help medical laboratories select and implement suitable tests that are authorized for emergency use. Specifically excluded from this paper are general considerations of emergency preparedness. That topic is covered by CLSI document EP43, Planning for Laboratory Operations During a Disaster. Ordinarily, commercially available tests are reviewed by regulatory authorities and either approved, cleared, or in some cases registered, based on their performance being shown as safe and effective, or substantially equivalent to a previously marketed test. In addition, laboratories may also develop their own tests, known as Laboratory Developed Tests, or LDTs. During public health emergencies, alternative pathways such as EUA may be allowed to facilitate development and validation of novel tests to meet the needs of the particular emergency. Because EUA tests are infrequently used, it can be difficult and confusing for end-user laboratories to know what they are allowed or required to do. Unique regulatory characteristics of EUAs include, for example, limitation to use during a declared public health emergency, expiration of authorization unless renewed or rescinded, regulatory flexibility to focus on the specific emergency and to define requirements for test developers and end users. The EUA tests are effective for meeting rapidly evolving testing needs during a public health emergency, but they may also cause confusion for laboratories when it comes to implementing and using them. This model, introduced in CLSI document EP19, a framework for using CLSI documents to evaluate clinical laboratory measurement procedures, outlines the steps from the initial concept of a test through retirement of the test by the end user. The framework is useful for both manufacturers and laboratories considering establishing or implementing an EUA test. EP43 focuses on the method implementation phases for laboratories implementing EUA tests and includes preliminary evaluation, verification or confirmation that the test meets the performance claims, preparation for and launch of the test, test maintenance, and test retirement. The differences and challenges presented by EUA tests are the focus of EP43. EP43 provides points to consider when deciding whether to implement an EUA test, including details and examples, and caveats to consider that might influence the decision. For example, you'll want to consider the extent and likely duration of the emergency, EUA test indications, and whether they'll be applicable to your population, testing personnel needed, test turnaround time, LIS needs, biosafety, and much more. During verification, the laboratory confirms the test meets the performance claims. Typical verification requirements usually apply to an EUA test, unless the test has been deemed waived. However, the availability of samples or other materials for use during verification might be limited. Recently authorized EUA tests, compared with traditional laboratory tests, may yield fewer definitively positive specimens, resulting in wider than usual confidence intervals around the stated sensitivity and a need to rely on surrogate samples. For SARS-CoV-2 in the United States, for example, the minimum needed materials suggested to conduct a verification may be listed in the authorized labeling, are subject to change, and should be verified with local, regional, and/or national regulatory authorities. The ultimate objective is the test performance verification. However, given the emergency situation, the urgent need for patient testing, and the possible lack of reagents and supplies, it might be difficult to fully evaluate the accuracy, precision, and measuring interval, for example. Because of these challenges, a more limited approach may be acceptable. Beyond performance verification, other considerations are also important before an EUA test is implemented, including, for example, IT considerations and results reporting. Alternative testing options for specimen types not validated for in-house testing. Billing and reimbursement. Documents and records management. Educational outreach. Notifications of intent to test to public health authorities, and CLIA complexity considerations. Because of the dynamic nature of a public health emergency, ongoing risk assessments may be warranted to accommodate reagent and supply chain shortages. As the public health emergency situation evolves, divergences might arise between various regulatory organizations and institutional guidance and policies. These conflicts should be brought to the attention of institutional administration and emergency management. In addition, laboratories might need to conduct cross-platform validations and will certainly need to deal with proficiency testing, external quality assessment, or PT/EQA, and specimen storage issues. A laboratory may decide to cease using a test authorized under an EUA, either because the pathogen is no longer circulating or for other reasons. For example, the test is inhibiting the laboratory's efficient operation of routine business. Or the test may be approved or cleared for routine use and therefore ceases to be covered by an EUA. Finally, the relevant regulatory authority may terminate or revoke the EUA that covered the test, in which case the laboratory is required to cease using the test. For more details on these and other considerations for implementing a laboratory test under emergency use conditions, please see CLSI document EP43. CLSI thanks you for your interest in our standards and guidelines. Please visit our website at www.clsi.org. Thank you.